It was evening when two planes, carrying a total of 349 people, were heading toward each other over the skies of New York. One of them was preparing to land at JFK Airport, while the other had just taken off from the same airport. Both pilots were receiving instructions from the same air traffic controller, and there was supposed to be a 1,000 feet vertical gap between them. Yet somehow the planes, meant to cross each other safely, ended up colliding mid-air. Where did the mistake happen, and who was responsible? If both pilots were following the air traffic controller's instructions and there was a safe gap between them, then how could such a disaster occur in such a vast sky? This is the tragic story of an incident known worldwide as the worst mid-air collision. Welcome once again my channel, where we bring you real stories from the skies. Did you know that at any given moment, there are 15,000 to 25,000 airplanes in the sky? According to flight radar data, more than 100,000 flights land every day worldwide. So the question arises, if there are so many planes in the sky at the same time, why don't they collide? The answer lies in air traffic controllers and imaginary airways in the sky. Just like highways exist on the ground, the sky has invisible airways, and air traffic controllers ensure planes follow these paths, each with its own rules. For example, the UM68 airway connects Europe to North America. Flights going eastbound, from Europe to Dubai, then the USA and Canada, are assigned odd-numbered altitudes like 35,000 feet, 37,000 feet, and 39,000 feet. Meanwhile, flights heading westbound, returning to Europe, are assigned even-numbered altitudes like 34,000 feet, 36,000 feet, and 38,000 feet. These altitude instructions are provided to pilots by the air traffic controller of the respective region. This system allows thousands of planes to safely cross each other in the sky, maintaining vertical gaps of 1,000 to 2,000 feet. And under normal circumstances, everything runs smoothly. But on the evening of November 12, 1996, something went terribly wrong over New York. Two passenger planes ended up colliding mid-air. One of them was a Kazakhstan Airlines Aviation SV763, which had taken off from Shymkent International Airport, Kazakhstan, at 3:55 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. After a 3.5-hour journey, it was scheduled to land at JFK International Airport. This was a chartered flight carrying 27 passengers and 10 crew members, mostly merchants traveling to the USA for trade. At the same time, a Saudi Airlines Boeing 747 was landing at JFK Airport. It was scheduled to pick up passengers and depart for Jeddah at 6 p.m. On board were 312 people, 289 passengers and 23 crew members, mostly Indian laborers working in the Middle East returning home. These two flights had probably never seen each other before. Their origins, routes, and destinations were completely different. Yet, the 349 people on board had no idea that within a few hours they would meet in the most terrifying way possible in the sky. By 6:23 p.m., Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 had reached Lumka Waypoint, a point in the sky similar to a roundabout or junction on a road. Waypoints are where different airways intersect and allow planes to change direction safely. These points are imaginary, but pilots rely on them to navigate. Here, it's important to understand the two airways involved. One was the international airway from Kazakhstan to the USA, which Flight 1907 had followed all the way to New York. The other was a different airway called G452, and it was at this intersection, where these airways met, that the unthinkable happened. Radio language, Golf 452. This airway connects the USA and China via the Gulf countries. On this airway, Saudi Airlines was supposed to fly from New York, JFK to Jeddah. These two airways intersect over New Jersey at a point known as Lumka Waypoint. This point is 328 kilometers west of JFK Airport. Any aircraft traveling on these airways, if it has to land in New York, must leave Lumpka Waypoint and descend onto a smaller airway called the New York Star Standard Terminal Arrival route. At 6:23 p.m., Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 reached Lumpka Waypoint. Its crew contacted New York ATC and requested permission to enter the New York Star route. At that time, their altitude was 25,000 feet, and the ATC cleared them to flight level 200, or 20,000 feet. Flight 1907 then descended from the international airway onto the New York Star route, adjusting its altitude to 20,000 feet. Meanwhile, at 6:32 p.m., Saudi Airlines Boeing 747 Flight SV763 took off after receiving permission from New York ATC. The captain was Khalid al-Shubaili, 44 years old. The first officer was Najir Khan, 39, and the flight engineer was Ahmed Idris, 36. This Saudi crew was fresh, having had 70 hours of rest before this flight. After takeoff, ATC cleared them to climb to 10,000 feet. At that point, Flight 1907 was 137 kilometers away from JFK Airport. Here's an important point. Saudi Airlines also had to fly along the New York Star route toward Lumpka Waypoint, while Kazakhstan Airlines Flight 1907 was already on the same route heading toward JFK. Both flights were communicating with the same ATC controller named V.K. Dutta. His responsibility was to keep the two planes safely separated on the Star route at different altitudes. At 6:34 p.m., Dutta cleared the Kazakhstan plane to descend to 15,000 feet while it was 100 kilometers away from JFK. 2 minutes later, at 6:36 p.m., he cleared the Saudi plane, previously at 10,000 feet, to climb to 14,000 feet. At this moment, both planes were on the same flight path, directly facing each other on the New York Star route. By 6:38 p.m., the Saudi crew reported they had reached 14,000 feet and requested permission to climb further. But because the Kazakhstan plane was going to cross above them with a 1,000-foot gap, V.K. Dutta instructed the Saudi plane to hold at 14,000 feet. The Saudi first officer acknowledged, responding, "Saudi SV763 will maintain 140, meaning 14,000 feet. Now, it's crucial to know the Kazakhstan flight crew. A 44-year-old captain, a 36-year-old first officer, a 50-year-old flight engineer, a 51-year-old navigator, and importantly, a 41-year-old radio operator. The radio operator was necessary because the rest of the crew spoke only Russian, while international ATC instructions are in English. His job was to translate ATC instructions from English into Russian. At 6:39 p.m., Flight 1907 reported being at 15,000 feet. At that time, V.K. Dutta said, "Identified traffic 12 o'clock reciprocal, Saudi Boeing 747 10 miles, likely to cross in another 5 miles, report if in sight." In simple terms, a Saudi 747 was directly ahead, 10 nautical miles away, and would cross their path in 5 nautical miles. If the Kazakhstan crew saw it visually, they had to report it. The Kazakhstan radio operator misunderstood the message initially and asked for clarification. Dutta repeated, "Traffic at 8 miles, level 140, meaning the aircraft was 8 nautical miles away at 14,000 feet. The radio operator then acknowledged, "Looking 1907, meaning they had noted it. Within 30 seconds, ATC received another message from a nearby U.S. Air Force cargo flight reporting a massive explosion ahead. Dutta immediately tried to contact both Saudi and Kazakhstan flights, but there was no response. Tragically, the planes had already collided. The left wing of Kazakhstan Airlines struck the left wing of the Saudi 747, tearing both wings apart. The Boeing 747 started spinning uncontrollably, flames erupting from its damaged wing, before breaking into two pieces and crashing into New Jersey farmland. The Kazakhstan plane went into a flat spin with half its wing and vertical stabilizer intact, crashing into another part of New Jersey. All 349 people on board both flights perished instantly. The horrific news sent shockwaves worldwide. Headlines asked, how could two planes collide with a 1,000-foot separation? Investigations revealed, when Flight 1907 reported 15,000 feet, it was actually at 16,348 feet, continuously descending. The radio operator either misunderstood the ATC message or the captain misread it. When the aircraft was supposed to hold at 15,000 feet, the captain descended to 14,000 feet, right into the level of the Saudi plane. Additional factors: the translation delay from English to Russian, ATC errors, officially a 1,000-foot gap instead of the recommended 2,000 feet, and radar systems unable to verify exact altitudes contributed to the disaster. This incident led to major reforms in aviation. Mandatory TCAS, traffic collision avoidance system, on commercial aircraft pilots worldwide required to speak and understand English fluently. New radar systems at major airports capable of showing both distance and altitude